So today I wanted to do a big video just to go over the best decks you can get per typing. Now there is grass, fire, water, electric, psychic, fighting, dark, dragon, steel, and then also colorless. Some of them do mix and match, but a lot of them are single type decks, especially until we start getting some new cards into the generations. Obviously, at the moment we've just got Apex Volume 1. We are going to get a mini set very soon, and then I believe the works in the new year is going to be a brand new full set that could see this meta completely changing. So going into the first deck, I thought, you know what, we're going to obviously go into grass straight off the bat. Now, in terms of the two decks that you can split into this, Executor can be on his own if you really wanted to, but then also you can go with a Venusaur EX, which personally I really do like if you can get him set up. Obviously at the moment he's going to be fantastic against a lot of the water decks. Executor in general is just a very nice quick opponent. Obviously with it, flip a coin, if it's head the attack does 40 more damage. That's just on a 1 energy, meaning you could potentially go with an 80 in literally the second turn if you have the execute straight away, and then straight into the Executor on your second go. That is a very quick attack, and obviously it's a little bit of an RNG for the flip a coin, but if you do manage to get it done and they haven't had time to evolve or get anybody in the back stages of their bench, they're pretty much done. So I really like the Executor lead-in deck. Obviously Venusaur in itself, if you can manage to do it, then Venusaur's always going to be a fantastic one. Great HP, has the heal 30 damage with the giant bloom. It's a very solid Pokemon. Also then in terms of trainers, you're looking at Erica. That can obviously heal 50 damage for one of your grass type Pokemon. Then we're going to have the standard. I'm not really going to go over too many of the trainers and supports, because pretty much you're going to see a lot of Professor Research, Pokeball, Giovanni, Sabrina, X-Speed, and also Potion. Red card maybe, but I will kind of identify any of the extra bonus cards that we do see, for instance, something like Misty. And what better place to go next but the water deck? And obviously, like we said with the support, Misty is going to be the one that you personally use here. Again, the standard trainers as we know. And in terms of the actual water deck that I personally like, there is obviously the Blastoise if you really wanted to go there. But I actually really do like the Greninja deck. It had a really good effect yesterday. If you want to see a more in-detailed version of that, go to my last Pokemon video. You should be able to see it. It was literally yesterday, and it was a fantastic deck. Obviously Froakie into Frogadier into Greninja with the Water Shuriken, obviously adding the 20 damage per turn even from the bench, then mixing in with almost a, what do they call it? It's kind of like a sacrificed Articuno. Will only get rid of 1 point, but then the EX Articuno to have the Ice Wing and Blizzard in the background with the Greninja, then having that up front. It is a very comfortable deck to be in. Which we might as well get the final elements out the way. Fire is always a fantastic one. You could either go Charizard and Moltres and Articuno, or as this deck does suggest, you can go all three. Now, the only thing I don't like about having so many Pokemon is actually getting them out of the deck. Sometimes can be a little bit more tricky. So I would suggest maybe picking one or the other. I personally, in terms of the consistency of the deck, do prefer the Arcanine and Moltres combination, just because you're not waiting on that 3-tier line. Charizard in general, if I can guarantee in an RNG situation, I will be able to get that Charizard off in maybe one less than more efficient turn. So say on my 5th turn, 4th turn, I can get Charizard in. I mean, I will take that deck every single day of the week, but I do prefer Arcanine for the more simplicity. Obviously, you can do it on your second time if you manage to get the Growlithe first. Arcanine can go in. Moltres is obviously pretty easy to get the free energy in that time as well. And then an X speed to switch. It's a pretty good combination. The only thing that really is going to kind of stunt it at the moment is water. Pikachu is very quick as well to get out. And then also a Mewtwo sometimes can get the upper hand if you don't get the Arcanine or Charizard out straight away. You would also potentially use a Blaine with a different fire deck, but I personally would say these kind of three are the main ones. Now, one of the biggest decks in the actual game, this is the Mewtwo EX deck. Gradavir, obviously in there with the Psy Shadow, gonna give yourselves an energy every turn from the bench, so you can basically absolutely slap people with Psy Drive. if you obviously have to discard 2, every turn you put it back on, you get the extra one with Guadavir, and you got the 150 again. Once you get that first one set up and a Mewtwo, it's very, very hard to get rid of him. You pretty much need to have got rid of enough health, maybe had, like, for instance, a Charizard or a Venusaur to take one of the hits, and just pray to God that you can. Other than that, Mewtwo is a phenomenal deck. You obviously, again, have the Sacrifice Mewtwo for the 1 point if you really wanted to, but in general, the EX, the Guadavir, is an incredible deck. Then we go into fighting, one of the decks that personally I've kind of been seeing a little bit, and predominantly for the Primeape. This is a fantastic one because if this Pokemon has damage on it, even if it's took 10 off it, it will do an extra 60 more damage. So if you get just one hit off, you can hit 100 straight off the bat, which is a fantastic metric on a double energy type. So if you manage to get 2 of these and can pretty much just damage anything, you are absolutely fine. The only time Primeape becomes a little bit less useless or less useful is against somebody which has more than 100 HP, has a big hit ready, because it's not going to withstand much, but it will hit high, just not high enough to get rid of a Charizard or, for instance, a Mewtwo in one hit. So it's got its flaws, but in the right scenario, especially with Sandslash as well, it's got a potential to do quite well. We then have the second most meta deck on the actual roster. It's going to be electric. We've got the Pikachu Zapdos EX, mixing with a little bit of a Blitzel as well, and is it Pinchurchin? I want to say Pinchurchin. I don't know, I could be getting that wrong. But again, I think that one for me is just a hit and miss. Obviously, it's a flip of the heads of the coins, and you could potentially paralyze your opponent. I like that. I think that's a pretty good one to have. But realistically, I normally go with a double Pikachu, double Zapdos, a double Blitzel, and a double Zebra Striker. They're kind of my, 8 to be able to go with. And then obviously you go with the standards, your Pokeballs. There's not really a trainer for that. Obviously, you are looking to lead with Pikachu as much as possible to be able to get 2 of the Zapdos and a Blitzel on the bench as quick as possible, because then obviously you will make the maximum amount of damage from Pikachu, and failing that, the Thundering Hurricane is going to be a cracking one if you have got the RNG for the coins, because if 4 heads kind of flip for that, and you've got a 200 damage waiting to pretty much floor absolutely anybody. So the electric deck, the Mewtwo deck, are going to be 2 top favorites. Then we're going to throw in a bit of Dark. Now, this is definitely a funny deck to play. Obviously, it's going to be very much based around being poisoned. There is another one that you can do, and I could not, for the life of me, find on here. It is a Weezing/Muck deck. I mean, that wasn't there a second ago. Now, obviously, you could potentially take out the Farfetch, the Meowth, for the Ekans, and also put him in for the Arbok as well. But Meowth does have a really good stat with drawing a card, so being able to do that at the start of the game could be quite good. But the Grimer is going to obviously poison the active Pokemon. Muck's then going to, if your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, this attack does 50 more damage, meaning it could do 120. Very nice. And then obviously with the Weezing, you can obviously put your in the active spot and also then poison again. The big thing for this is you do have Koga. Put your Muck or Weezing in the active spot into your hand. So for instance, maybe I've gone with the Weezing, I've got the poison off, I want to bring him back. I play a Koga, and then I can bring him back and then put in a Meowth, a Farfetch, a Kangaskhan seems to be quite a good one as well. Or I could throw back into my Grimer, Muck combination, whatever you want. And then also the Coffin and Weezing will both be back in your hands. So if you can utilize that really well, it's a deck with a very strategic kind of plan, and it can work very, very well. You could throw in a little bit of Hypno as well, maybe, with the Psychic side. We then have Dragon, which is increasingly harder and harder because realistically, it's Dragonite or nothing at this point. Now, obviously with the Dragonite, it's got to be a slightly difficult deck to do because you need the water and electric. Obviously, there is a colorless one as well, and by the end of it, you will get the water, electric, and 2 colorless, so you should have both on there already. So you get one of your opponent's Pokemon is chosen at random 4 times for each time a Pokemon was chosen. Do 50 to it. Incredible. Absolutely massive. Once you get that off, You can get him out, but it's very, very difficult. There is actually no weakness at the moment. Obviously, it should be dragon, but there is... Well, I mean, it should be dragon, but I don't get why it doesn't. So, realistically, we know that already. When it comes to then, Kangaskhan is a great holding place. 100 HP, has the Dizzy Punch to be able to allow Dratini in, and also Dragonair to be able to start evolving and putting energies on once you've given it its first one. We then also have Articuno as another placeholder whilst you're getting your Dratini, Dragonair and Dragonite ready. And then in terms of everything else, it's pretty standard. Obviously the Misty, you could be able to put the Articuno into work, and then also the Paralyzed, or you could potentially get 3 of the energies on Dragonite, and hopefully that you've got an electric already. So a fantastic deck for the dragon. Now honestly, I have not seen a steel deck yet. I feel like we need quite a few more cards to be able to put this in. I've seen it against once, and I made him quit straight away because I had the perfect hand. It was in the... I want to say it was in the Greninja video, actually. Obviously, with Melmetal, just as his ability, this Pokemon takes 20 damage from attack... This Pokemon takes minus 20 damage from attacks. You obviously can do that. And also with a 4 energy, you get Heavy Impact, which is 120. Very nice indeed. Going to be a little bit weak against the Arcanine or Charizard decks. But you could also throw in a Kangaskhan. You could throw in a Meowth. Obviously a Farfetch'd and Marwile. Flip a coin. If heads, discard a random energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. It's just going to keep them in limbo a little bit. So you could potentially... caught early enough and very good with the heads, stop them from ever attacking. It could happen, but it's not very likely. So I think the steel deck needs some work, so we will have a look at that in the near future. And then finally, we've kind of got a bit of a colorless deck. It does feature a lot of dark as well, because obviously with the Coughing and Wheezing plus then a Koga is going to be good for the poison, but Wigglytuff is going to come out on top. Obviously, Meowth's ability to draw a card is fantastic, but the ability to sleep is even better. Your opponent has to then have a heads or tails. If heads, the Pokemon will wake up still, and obviously if tails, they will fall asleep and can stay asleep for the longest time, which is always nice to be able to whack some 80s off and then hopefully not have like an X-Speed to get him out of there. If you could potentially... make it so they can't retreat. I want to say Arbok does that. Again, it could be a nice combination rather than necessarily the poisoning, but obviously the poisoning is purely down to the fact that the active Pokemon will be poisoned and every 10 goes. If obviously then they've gone with the asleep Pokemon, it means that it's just constantly getting poisoned even more. Plus then the 80 damage on top. So it's a decent deck for the colorless. Again, could do with some extra bonuses in the near future of new decks. Now that's going to be every type. Let me know if you're using any of them. And if you've got a type with a different deck, leave it in the comments.